The most dangerous abuse facing women over 50 isn't physical, it's financial, and it's happening in silence all around us. Now imagine this, you have worked your whole life. You've raised your kids, maybe you're caring for or have cared for aging parents. You've built a career. You're over 50 now, and this is supposed to be the time when you can finally take a little bit of a breather. Everything gets a little bit easier, but instead, someone you trust, maybe a spouse, a romantic partner, maybe even your own child, starts making the financial decisions for you. And at first it does feel like they're helping you. But little by little, you realize your independence, your dignity, even your safety is slipping away and you didn't even see it happening. That's financial abuse, and it's one of the most silent epidemics facing women over 50. And no one is really talking about it, but it's happening everywhere and often, and it's happening inside families. And speaking of this is a very unique episode because I'm going to show you how to recognize the signs before it's too late or to change it if you're in the middle of it, and how to protect yourself or someone you love. Now, just so you know, this episode is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not financial or legal advice. And I also want to I want to start by sharing a story that proves how quickly this can happen, even to the most careful, independent woman. Because if you're like me, before I even took a deep dive into the research on this topic, I was thinking, yeah, this would not happen to me. And I was also thinking, well, am I going to find enough information to even do an episode on its own on this topic? And I was astounded at how quickly it can actually happen, and that the signs are so subtle that we might just miss them, which means we might not even know that it's happening to us. So let's just start by getting really clear about what financial abuse is. Now, unlike physical abuse, there are no bruises, no broken bones, nothing you can point to on the outside. But make no mistake, the wounds run deep. Financial abuse happens when someone takes control of your money or your access to money in order to control you. And it's not just about dollars and cents, it's about power, about stripping away independence piece by piece until you feel like you can't move without their permission. Now let me tell you another story. These are true stories I'm going to reference in this episode. Now Susan, 56, divorced. She thought she had finally found someone after her divorce, someone new in her life who truly cared for her. He was charming, he was supportive, always offering to help her. And at first, felt like a blessing. He would say stuff like, "Don't worry about the bills, I'll take care of them. You've been through enough." And, who wouldn't be relieved to have someone step in after years of doing it all on your own? But slowly, that tone shifted because he started questioning her purchases, things that she would buy. "Do you really need that?" For example, he would ask her. And then came the practical suggestions. One that said, "Why don't you just put my name on your account, just in case something happens?" And it sounded reasonable to her in the moment. I mean, after all, he'd been there helping her with all the other things. And within months, guess what happened? Susan's savings, it was just gone. And when she confronted him about it, instead of apologizing, he just gaslit her and said, "Well, you're terrible with money anyway. I'm just protecting us." So, what happened to Susan? He left because she no longer had the savings account, and she was not only broke, but she was doubting herself, questioning her judgment, and feeling like maybe, you know what, maybe he was right. That's the invisible scar of financial abuse. It doesn't just take your money, it takes your confidence, your dignity, and your sense of safety. Now, I know that you may be thinking at this moment, well, those signs are so obvious. I would not have done that. Well, just stay with me because it gets deeper than that. And here's the part that may actually surprise you, a shocking part. Most financial abuse doesn't come from strangers in dark alleys or anonymous scammers on the phone. So that's not a rare story that I'm telling you. It actually comes from the people closest to us, family members, romantic partners, caregivers, the very people that we are supposed to be able to trust the most. And so, no, her story is not rare. Financial abuse is one of the most common forms of abuse faced by women over 50, yet it's also the least reported. Why? Because it hides in the shadows, because it often comes disguised as help, and because too many women feel ashamed to admit it's happening. But the silence is part of the epidemic. When it's hidden, it's allowed to spread. So if we go back to Susan's story, and it may sound shocking, but here's the truth, it's not really an isolated case. Stories, her particular situation, stories like hers are happening every day, quietly, and often to women who never imagined that they'd be vulnerable, which raises the question, why are women over 50, and the statistics get worse in women over 60, but why is this age group such a common target for financial abuse? And the answer lies in a mix of life circumstances, economics, and social conditioning. And when all of those three collide, they create a perfect storm. For many women over 50, life is shifting in major ways. Some are newly divorced after decades of marriage, others are widowed, suddenly forced to manage money alone for the first time. Many are part of the what we call the sandwich generation. So they're caring for aging parents while still supporting adult children. These transitions are emotionally overwhelming. And when you're grieving, adjusting, or just trying to hold everything together, that's when you're most at risk. That's when someone can step in, offer help, and quietly take control. Here's another layer, money itself. Women tend to retire with less, and on average, women earn less across their lifetime. I'm not saying every woman, I'm just giving you an average, statistically speaking, because you may be that woman that's earning more than the average man. But I'm just giving you some averages, okay? And many take breaks from work to care for children or family. Oftentimes, that burden falls on the woman in the family. So you can understand it if I explain it from this space. You're a young couple, you're taking care of kids. If your child is sick, most often it will be the woman, the mom that stays home to take care of the child. So they take the breaks from work to care for children or family. And to add the, if you're adding a longer life expectancy, that math, all of that is sobering. More years to cover with fewer resources. And that smaller financial cushion, it makes women more dependent, and dependency is exactly what abusers exploit. Now let's add the cultural piece, because many women in this age group grew up in a time when it was normal, even expected, for husbands to handle the money. I mean, I remember my mom was the same way. Questioning financial decisions was often seen as you're not trusting your husband, your partner, or you're actually even being disrespectful. So that conditioning, it doesn't just vanish, it lingers even if there's been changes in society. So when a partner or even a grown child starts taking over finances, many women in this age category don't see it as abuse. They see it as the way things are supposed to be. So, let me tell you another story, a true story then. This would be the perfect time to talk about Linda. Now, Linda, she's 61, and when her husband passed away suddenly, he he had managed she felt like she didn't know what to do financially because he had always managed the investments, the bills, everything. So what she did was turn to a longtime friend from church for guidance, someone that she thought she'd known for years that she could trust. And at first, it felt like it was a true lifeline. He offered to sort through the paperwork, explained things she didn't understand, but slowly her account started to shrink. Little transfers at first, then larger, bigger ones, one by one. But by the time she realized what was happening, her savings, her accounts had been siphoned into his name, and she lost nearly everything. This is what makes financial abuse so dangerous. It doesn't always come with force or threats. Sometimes it hides in kindness. It looks like help until it's too late. And here's another reality for you. It's systemic. Women over 50 sit at the intersection of economic vulnerability, life transition, and outdated expectations, and abusers know it and they exploit it. And here's the part that I really want you to hear. Well, I want you to hear it all, but all the parts are important. But here's something that's really important. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's inevitable. Recognizing why women in this age group are targeted is the first step towards breaking the cycle. So now that we understand a little bit about why women over 50 and on up really are so often targeted, there is a scarier question that we need to ask ourselves. How then do we know that it's happening? I gave you a little bit of a hint of some situations on how we would know that it's happening. And do you remember what I said at the top of the episode? How I thought I could never become a victim of financial abuse? Well, here's the truth: financial abuse is hiding in plain sight. I think that was one of the things that really astounded me when I was doing this research. And I felt like once I uncovered it, it seemed like an aha moment. Like I should have known this. But sometimes we just don't. It hides in kindness. And sometimes the person living through it doesn't even realize until the damage is already done. So, naturally, that would lead us to this next series of questions. What if it's already happening to you or someone you know, love, and you don't even know the signs? Let's talk about some red flags, some that are less obvious than others. And these are often the first indicators, but it's easy to dismiss. So, some of the financial flags are sudden, unexplained withdrawals from bank accounts, bills piling up even when there's enough money to cover them, new credit cards or loans that you didn't approve or your loved one didn't approve, missing valuables or possessions being sold without your consent. And it happens because here is another true story. And this is Carol, and she's 59, and she noticed late fees were stacking up on bills she knew she had paid. Her adult son insisted that he was helping by managing the payments. Remember me telling you it could be children, even. But what he was actually doing was skimming money off the top. Now, this is Carol's story, 59 years old. And at first, it was just a few dollars here and there. And then it became hundreds of dollars. And by the time she saw the overdue notices, her credit had been damaged beyond repair. And from financial red flags, let's move into behavioral red flags. Sometimes it shows up not in accounts, but in the actual person. So the whoever it is may avoid talking about money even when she used to be open. She seems fearful, anxious, or resigned when finances come up. She second guesses every purchase, everything she's doing with money, no matter how small. These aren't just weird quirks. They can be signals of someone losing control over their financial life. They may not be, but if they're coming in succession like this, you and it's your friend or loved one, maybe check in on them. And then we move from that into relational red flags. This is where it often becomes obvious to friends and outsiders. Someone else, a partner, child, or caregiver, suddenly speaks for her in her banks, in the stores, in any financial meeting. So these are the more obvious, like again, like the partner asking to put their name on it, etc. Also, she's belittled for her financial decisions, for example. The partner, child, or caregiver is saying to her, "You're terrible with money. You'd be lost without me." Maybe an adult child moves back home and then slowly starts taking over the household budget, making the parent feel that they're actually a guest in their own home. And this does happen. Let's take another true story. Evelyn, she's 64. She loved going out to lunch with her friends every week without fail. Then she just stopped showing up. And when her best friend finally pressed her as to why, Evelyn admitted that she wasn't allowed to spend money on things that weren't necessary, that her partner had started controlling her spending, giving her a small allowance and demanding receipts for every single purchase. So he framed it as budgeting, but what looked like budgeting on the outside is actually financial abuse. Here's another heartbreaking truth as we go through these stories. If you've seen these signs, whether in yourself or someone else, financial abuse may already be happening. So it doesn't necessarily have to start with a dramatic event. It can start small, disguised as help, kindness, and then it grows quietly until this person's independence is just gone. Think about the women in your life, your friends, your mother, your sister, maybe even yourself. Have you ever noticed any of these possible red flags? Drop a comment if you're comfortable with sharing that, or if you'd rather keep it private, email me your story. You can find my email in the show notes. And by the way, if you're finding value in conversations like this, I now have channel memberships. It's a way to directly support this work and get access to extras that I'll be sharing with members. You'll be able to see that information in the show notes. And if you decide to share your story with me, with us, with the community, either by emailing or leaving a comment under this episode, I thank you. We thank you because sharing could be the first step to breaking the silence and possibly helping others. So, we've talked about those warning signs, but now let's shift to what can you actually do to protect yourself or someone you love. I am going to share some very empowering steps that you can do. Step one, protect your independence. Even in marriage, even when you fully trust someone, you need to keep at least one bank account in your own name. And it's not secrecy, it's just security. This one was it was really hard for me. I fought having my own bank account for years because I just didn't see the necessity. Even when I ventured out and I actually did get my own bank account, it still took me some time to get used to it. Now, I would not have it any other way. Not only can it protect you from financial abuse, but there is a sense of freedom that I feel having my own. And I like that it's not monitored and controlled by anyone else. Step two, strengthen your defenses. Use strong, unique passwords for all your financial accounts. Turn on two factor authentication for all accounts. Authentication for all accounts. Set fraud alerts with your bank and credit cards. Look into password managers, for example, like Bitwarden. I'm not sponsored by them, but I will put a link to that in the show notes so that you can check it out. Step three, regular check ins. Look at your statements every month. Pull a credit report once a year. Make it a habit, like a doctor's checkup. Please do not skip this step. I have had a few things that have shown up on my own credit report over the years that were not mine. Those things can and do happen. Step four, choose one trusted friend, sibling, or advisor who knows enough about your finances to spot trouble if something seems off. And do not just leave that person as your ally sitting for years. This is a common mistake that I see happen. Check in on that relationship, make sure that person is still the right fit. Relationships change like seasons sometimes. So we want to make sure that we don't leave this as a loophole. Step 5, legal safeguards. If you've set up, for example, a power of attorney, make sure it's limited. Too many women unknowingly sign away total control. Get legal advice, get legal advice, get legal advice. I can't say that enough. Before signing anything, you will definitely want to get legal advice. Said it again on this one, and make sure you completely understand the legalities here. Step 6, know your resources. What does that mean? Well, here's an example. Adult Protective Services in your area, know where they are. The National Domestic Hotline, know where that's at. AARP has a fraud watch network, and they are all powerful places to turn. That's just a few. I've only listed a few. So do your research and find some of those resources in your area. All of these steps matter and can help prevent financial abuse in your life or someone you know. And never underestimate your network of friends and awareness. Let's listen to Maria. This is another true story, and this is a direct example of why we should never underestimate awareness and our friends. 58, she was nearly handing over $80,000, her money, of her hard earned money, to someone she thought she could trust. It's a whole deal thing she thought that she was investing in. But before signing anything, she mentioned it to a friend. And that friend said, "Hey, maybe you need to double check with a financial advisor." Actually, not maybe, go double check with a financial advisor. That one pause saved her future. One conversation, and her $80,000 was back in her bank account. That's the power of awareness. And if you're finding this conversation helpful, consider sharing, liking, and subscribing to this podcast. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I now have channel memberships available. It's just another way for you to support this work and be part of this community. And it offers a few special perks just for members. We discuss a lot of deep topics on this channel. And the one thing I always try to do is offer anything that could possibly help someone in whatever situation we are discussing. And this topic is not different. And I don't like to just talk about it. I like to offer, is there anything that we can do to offset some of these situations that we discuss? Because here's the truth. Awareness and action can protect you, but silence is what allows financial abuse in this case to keep spreading. So yes, there are steps that you can take to protect yourself. But here's a question we can't ignore. Why is it so common? Why are not more women coming forward and reporting this? And I mentioned a few things earlier. But I want to go deeper on that because for many, it's shame. Admitting you've been taken advantage of feels really humiliating. And some women are thinking, well, you know what? I should have known better. Others fear being judged or worry their family will look down on them. And if it's their family that's done it, then there's that dynamic. They don't want that. They probably love and care for this family member and do not want the other family feeling maybe ostracizing themselves from this particular member. That shame, those feelings keeps them quiet. And silence is exactly what abusers count on. For others, it's just fear. Fear of losing a spouse who always pays the mortgage, fear of being abandoned by an adult child they depend on for rides or care, or just feeling fear of being wiped out of their life. Fear of retaliation if they speak up. That's another biggie. So, when your abuser also holds the keys to your stability, speaking out feels impossible. But that silence has a cost. a true cost. It doesn't just drain your bank account, it drains your confidence, it isolates you from friends, it violates your security, it damages your health because the stress, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, they all take a toll on your body and your mind. And over time, silence eats away at your very sense of self. And there are countless real stories of this in action. Patricia, let's take Patricia for example. 63, confided to a neighbor that she hadn't been allowed to see her own bank statements in years, that her husband controlled everything. And when she asked questions, he'd say stuff like, "Don't worry about it. You wouldn't understand it." And she just stayed silent, believing, maybe he was right. She wouldn't understand it. By the time she finally got around to looking, because she reached out to her neighbor. Remember, awareness, networking. The retirement funds they were supposed to have, she thought would be there, had been absolutely drained. She didn't just lose money, she lost her future security. And if you have not had a chance to watch the 2 episodes I did on retirement and homelessness and seniors, please take the time to go and watch those episodes, because I'll link them at the end of this episode, because this story, Patricia's story, is an example of how seniors end up on the streets or how people lose their retirement, for example. Before I move forward, let's address the elephant in the room, because I know the elephant is there, or rather, the perceived elephant in the room. This type of financial abuse doesn't spread, isn't silent because women are weak. It happens, it's able to spread because women are silent. And lack of knowledge is important as well. And I hope that the information in this episode helps to break some of that silence. Because when we talk about it, when we shine a light on what's happening, we're going to take away the biggest weapon they use for financial abuse, and that is secrecy. It doesn't always look like theft. It doesn't always look like fraud from a stranger. It often hides in kindness and trust in people closest to us. Your dignity, your independence, your future is worth protecting. And I hope that the information in this episode, if you know anyone that is experiencing this, or if you are experiencing this, I hope that it's letting you know that you are not powerless and you are not alone. This is definitely not an isolated incident. It's not rare. If this episode has struck a chord with you, I want to hear from you. You don't have to share it in the comments if you feel uncomfortable with that. You can definitely email me privately. Find my email in the show notes. And if you'd like to go a step further, I mentioned that I have channel memberships available as well. If you found this helpful, please hit subscribe, share this video with someone who you think might need to hear this information, and help me shine a light on important issues like this that has stayed hidden for too long. And if you've made it this far with me, thank you. I do not take your time or trust lightly. I'm truly grateful that you're here. Until next episode, take care of your mind, body, and soul.